right, welcome, Shabbat Shalom to our intimate crowd gathered here. The most intimate crowd we've had in a while, I think, even. So, yeah, and you're sitting in the back. It's just like old times. And welcome to those who are following on YouTube tonight as well. Thanks for being here. I feel like I need Shabbat this week. It was a very difficult week. Here at Temple Beth Abraham, 3 members of our congregation or relatives of our congregation passed away this week, and our thoughts are with them, and we'll talk about them in just a little bit. All right, so because I really feel the need for Shabbat, I'm going to sing a Shabbos. I'm going to sing a song called Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos. It happens to be my mom's favorite, actually. Learned it from cantor Henry Greenberg back at Beth Israel, Judea, in San Francisco. Shabbos, 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 Shabbos. Soll sein Brüder Shabbos. Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos auf der ganze Welt. Shabbos for the whole world. Now we're going to say Shoilem, which is, of course, peace. Shoilem, 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 Shoilem. Soll sein Brüder Shoilem. Shoilem soll sein, Shoilem soll sein, Shoilem auf der ganze Welt. And back to Shabbos. Shabbos, 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 Shabbos. Soll sein Brüder Shabbos. Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos auf der ganze Welt. All right, let's also turn to page 1 now, the additional soul that we get on Shabbat Yedid Nefesh. Page 1. It's the rare book. It starts on page 1, right? Let me just check one quick thing. That's why. Yedid Nefesh Abarhaman, Yedid Nefesh Abarhaman, Ishoch Avdecha, El Ritzonecha, Ishoch Avdecha, Ya la 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 la, El Ritzonecha. One of you won the bet. I can't remember which one, Dave. Dave won the bet. Okay. All right. It was an easy bet, I think. All right, we're going to turn to Yismechu Hashamayim, page 6, middle of the page. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth be glad. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel ha'aretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Umelo. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Umelo. Nice clapping there, Eyal. Very, very nicely on rhythm. All right, we're going to page 12. Page 12. Romemu Adonai Eloi כי kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Yeah, you can shout ki or you can clap, either one now. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodesh. All right, page 13. Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, Ahu l'Adonai Be'im, Ahu l'Adonai, Kavod ba'oz, ay, Ahu l'Adonai, Kevod shemo yishtachavu l'Adonai be'adrat kodesh. Adonai, al ha'amayim, el ha'kavod yirim. Adonai, al ma'ayim rabim. Kol Adonai, v'koach. Kol Adonai, ve'echadar. Kol Adonai, shover arazim. Shaver Adonai, e'azeh ha'manon. Yarkirem kamo egel le'adon ve'esirion kemo ve're'im ay kol Adonai hotzer lavot esh kol Adonai yachir midbar yachir Adonai midbar karesh kol Adonai yechol ayalon Ye'arot uve'echalon kulo omer kavod ay Adonai la'amu yashav yishev Adonai melech le'olam Adonai oz le'amu yiten Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom hey yai yai nai 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 yai nai 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 All right, Lecha Dodi, page 15. Page 15. We do the first two and the last two stanzas here. And for our former Beth Jacob and Redwood City folks, this is actually, a lot of people just call this a traditional melody, but I actually learned it at your synagogue. So your former, your synagogue from former years. But you should know it, but maybe that was the one time they sang it was when I went for for services. Who knows? Lecha Dodi likrat kala v'nishava nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala v'nishava nekavela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad Ishmiyanu el am yuchad Adonai echad U'shemo echad V'shemo tiferet v'likila Lecha Dodi likrat kala V'nishava nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala V'nishava nekavela. Likrat Shabbat le'uvenelcha Inti makor Avraham Ve'rosh mikedem nesuha So ma'aseh b'machshava tefila Lecha Dodi Lecha Dodi likrat kala Psalm 17, Yami Usmo Tifrotzi, Et Adonai Taritzi, Al Yad Ish Ben Partzi, Ben Ismecha Benagila, Vechadoti Doti, Vechadoti Likrat Kala, Ben Ishavaneka Bela, Vechadoti Likrat Kala, Ben Ishavaneka Bela. We rise and face the entrance. V'shalom ateret ba'ala gam b'simcha u'betzola tov emunei am segula bo'ikala lecha dodi likrat ka'ala v'nei shavaneka bela Adoti likrat kala, ve'nesha vaneka avera. And we say to the mourners in our midst, Hamakom v'nechamechem v'tokshav v'lein Zion Yerushalayim. May God comfort you with all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We may be seated, page 19. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot le'Adonai. L'zavmer l'shimcha elyon, l'zavmer l'shimcha elyon. Le'adim b'boker chasdecha, ve'emunacha b'leilot. Alei asor ve'aleina, ve'alei higayon ve'chinon. Yom HaShabbat, Tov Mehodot le'Adonai, U'Zamer l'Shimcha Elyon, U'Zamer l'Shimcha Elyon. We continue silently. Tzadik Tamar Yifrach Ka'erez balvanon yizgeh shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu odinu bun beseva Shenim verananim yihu Lehadim Yashar Adonai Tzuri Veloav Latavo Adonai Melach Yot Lavesh Lavesh Adonai Azitazar Aftikon Tever Baltimo Nachon Kisachav Meaz Lamata Suderot Adonai Nasuderot Kulam Yisuderot Yam Kolod Mahim Mayim Rabim Adirim Mishsereyam Adir Bamarom Adonai Erotecha Lehem Numeo Bebetecha Nava Kodesh Adonai Meorech Yamim. We rise for the very briefly for the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu, page 22. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. We can be seated. Baruch Atah Adonai Le'Machalam Asher Bivaro Ba'ariva Ravim. יום ולילה, ולא מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור, ויום ובין לילה, אביב בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, וחי וקיים תמיד, ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים. Page 24. Avat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al Kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shofeinu u'bekumeinu Nasiach b'chukecha V'nizmach v'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה לבדך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני ובעמו ישראל. Page 25. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך בכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Continue silently 27 through 29. I'm on page 29. So without our sound and stream guy here, without Josh here, I have to do all these adjustments myself, so that's why I disappeared a couple times. But it looks like it's going fine. But Josh needs vacation too. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. מלכות טוב רצון גדול להם, ראשי בני ישראל חנה שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא, אדוני ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה לי אנו ואמרו זה לי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. I forgot to start with this part, but here we go. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. V'nemarki F'nai Yaakov Baruch Hazak Mimenu Baruch Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. 33. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'hamidenu Malkeinu Lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'hamidenu Malkeinu Lechayim. Shmor tziteinu Lechayim u'shalom me'atah ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Hashkivenu Adonai Lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Ve'hamidenu Malkeinu Lechayim. Hamidenu Malkeinu Lechayim. V'osalenu Sukkot Shlomecha Baruch Atah Adonai Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu B'chol Yisrael V'al Yerushalayim. Please rise for Vishamru 34. Vishamru B'nei Yisrael HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש Shabbat vayinafach, Shabbat vayinafach, Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. 35. יקרא ויקרא שמי רבה, רבה דברה חירותי והמלך מלכותי, וחייכנו ביומך וחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב יגמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ברמם וינשא יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה נעמירן ביומה ואמרו Amen. Private Amidah, pages 37 through 48. Shalom, Alleluia. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, Ya'aseh shalom, Alleluia. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru, Amen. So I'm going to turn now to page 49, my badge feel. I'm going to do it myself today. I want to thank Jacqueline Polchik in advance for doing it next week. She'll be leading the service next Friday during my absence, or you don't have to do it actually. We could skip that part if you want. And thank Marshall Langfeld for leading services Friday night last week. Jacqueline Polchik for leading Saturday morning services last week, as well as Rabbi Berlin for giving the drush. 49. Baruch Hashemayim v'haaretz v'chol tzivam v'yachal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i v'lakto asher asa v'yishpot b'yom hashvi'i v'kol v'lakto asher asa v'yivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i v'yikadesh oto ki bo Shabbat mikol v'lakto asher bara Elohim laso Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Yonei Shamayim v'Haaretz, Magid Avot Bibaro, Mechayei Meitim v'Ma'amaro, Ha'el HaKadosh she'ein kamohu, Ha'meniach li'amno, Yom Shabbat Kodsho, Kivan Ratza v'haniach lahem Kivam Ratzah Laniach Lahem Lefanav Na'avod V'yirav Pachad V'nodeh Lishmo B'chol Yom Tamid Me'ein HaBrachot El Ahod Ahod Adon Ashalom Mikadesh HaShabbat M'varech Shvi'i Minach B'Pusha Yamikush Ne'oheg Zecher L'maaseh Bereshit Reinu Velokei Avotenu Ritzei B'mnuchatenu Kodshenu B'mitzvotecha V'ten Chelkenu B'toratecha Savenu Mituvecha Samchenu B'shuatecha V'taher Libeinu Li'ovdecha Be'emet V'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu V'ahava U'beratzon Shabbat Kodshecha Yenuchu B'Yisrael Mekadshe Shemecha Brukat Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat 53 G'ral V'Kras Shemei Rabbah V'amani B'rakirotei V'yamlich Malchutei V'chayechonu V'yomechonu V'chayechol Beit Yisrael V'agalav B'zman Karev V'imeru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah V'vorach Le'olam Le'olmei Almaya Yiparach Yiparach V'ishtabach Yipar V'mram B'naseh V'tadar V'taleh V'talal Shmei Kudsha V'richu Le'lam Yikur B'chata V'shirata Shush B'chata V'nechamata Daviram Yema V'imeru Amen Tikabal Tzvoton V'oton L'cho Yisrael Kunam Avahoni V'shmaya V'imeru Amen Eshalom Rab Bin Shemaya V'chayman V'Ko Yisrael V'imeru Amen Yosei Shalom B'Mromav V'yasei Shalom Aleinu V'Ko Yisrael V'Ko Yishvei Tevel V'imeru Amen. All right, we have a few newcomers here, so you might not know. I don't do a sermon on Friday nights, but I've been doing the Jewish perspective on all the presidents of the United States, and we are up to Herbert Hoover tonight, which we're far out of the Revolutionary era into the 20th century. And my first knowledge of Herbert Hoover was from the song that opened the All in the Family show, right? Mr. We can use a man like Herbert Hoover again, right? You remember that? You probably couldn't understand the words. Jerry, you got it, right? Okay, it's in there. Anyway, he was the first president born west of the Mississippi River, born in Iowa. And he was in the first class at Stanford University, which is why there's a lot of things at Stanford named after him. I'm sure that will be erased at some point soon, but yes, that is true. He was a Quaker, highly educated, high degree of formal education. He was an engineer, a very good one, and he was famous for that. Before he was president and after, he was known as the great humanitarian because he was basically in charge of all the food distribution in the US and then in Europe following World War I. And he was incredibly ethical about this, and I mean a real philanthropist isn't the right word, but someone who really took care of the world, fed the hungry. Despite that, as a Republican, he only got 20% of the Jewish vote. 80% went to the Democratic candidate Al Smith, but he did have some significant Jewish support. And those same Jews who supported him became his friends when he was in office and post office. That included Louis Strauss. That's not Levi Strauss, it's Louis Strauss, the investment banker. He eventually was Hoover's secretary as the U.S. Food Administrator. When Hoover was the U.S. Food Administrator, Louis Strauss was his secretary. They did a lot of work together with the JDC, the Joint Distribution Committee, which dispersed funds all over the world for Jews in need. And Strauss kept him informed of anti-Semitism going on in Europe, and they became great friends. In 1919, there was a war with Poland and Russia. In their war, Poland captured Pinsk and slaughtered 37 Jews in a synagogue. And Hoover protested, met in person with the Polish Prime Minister to demand investigations. He was also friends with Julius Rosenwald, who you may have heard of from the Sears and Roebuck. He was a great financial supporter of Hoover. Also helped with the Eastern European War Relief for Jews and JDC. Actually, Julius Rosenwald raised 10% of all the funds at that time for that relief. Rosenwald was a major Republican figure. And remember, we've just started the transition of Republicans being the anti-slavery party to the pro-business party. I mean, I'm massively generalizing here, Rosenwald grew up a block from Abraham Lincoln's house in Springfield, Illinois. So he was really dedicated to Lincoln, not at the same time, but he was really dedicated to Lincoln and the Republican Party as a result of that. Also, Lewis Marshall, who was the president of the American Jewish Committee. And all three of those people, despite being very good friends of Hoover, declined appointments in his administration. He did, however, appoint Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver. He of the great, what's it called? Well, this temple in Cleveland that they call Silvers. It has another name, but everybody calls it Silvers. They still call it Silvers. Because both he and his son were the rabbis there in succession. Abba Hillel Silver was a major national figure, and he was appointed to the National Advisory Committee on Unemployment Relief. And also Harry Guggenheim of the very famous Guggenheim family was appointed to the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. The most important Jewish appointment, however, that Hoover made was probably Supreme Court Justice Benjamin Cardozo, who actually was a descendant, I just learned, of Gershom Mendes Sextus, who was like the first Kazan rabbi type guy. They called him Reverend at the time in the United States. Cardozo was a Democrat, and yet Hoover appointed him. Those things were not as important back then to presidents when it came to Supreme Court justices. And as you know, if you know anything about the court, there were always a lot of surprises. Still a little bit, but not as much today. There were two Jews on the court at that time, right? Brandeis had already been appointed. Now we have Cardozo. He was supported particularly by an Idaho senator named William Borah, who's like a major character who wore a top hat. Not always a friend of, certainly of liberal causes and some Jewish causes. In fact, he didn't really, he was not an anti-Nazi. He wasn't really pro-Nazi, but he thought Germany should get to do what they want to do. Anyway, he was a big supporter of Cardozo. And he said to Hoover, "Such an opportunity may never come again to you, Mr. President, to strike a blow to anti-Semitism by appointing a second Supreme Court justice who's Jewish." Cardozo actually only served 6 years in the court before dying, but he authored over 100 opinions. Of course, what Hoover's most famous for outside the Jewish community is he was president during the Great Depression. And though he tried things like public works, he opposed direct relief to individuals. I don't know that any president could have done anything about the Depression, but he didn't do enough. He was certainly blamed for it, and he was ushered out of office by a landslide by FDR, which you'll hear about in 2 weeks. I may have to do 2 on FDR because there's a lot to say about him, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Post-presidency, he lived a long life. He was very much an anti-Nazi, Herbert Hoover. He pushed for emergency immigration for Jews, despite the fact that there were a lot of people who didn't want them because of the competition for employment during the Depression, or immediately after. But he said it befits the American wish to aid the suffering. It answers the appeal to every American heart for the protection of children. He was also a great Zionist. He said after his presidency, "I have watched with genuine admiration the steady and unmistakable progress made in the rehabilitation of Palestine, which, desolate for centuries, is now renewing its youth and vitality through the enthusiasm, hard work, and self-sacrifice of the Jewish pioneers who toil there in a spirit of peace and social justice." He also wanted to settle Jews in Central Africa. It's called the Hoover-Baruch Plan, but they quickly scrapped that when it just was not viable. Oddly enough, he served in both the Truman and Eisenhower administrations, post-presidency, on the famine emergency commissions. With his experience in hunger and engineering, he died peacefully in 1964 at 90 years old. Herbert Hoover. All right, great that, Jacqueline, you brought your kids back, because it's time to bless them. Simech Elohim Kasar, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Simcha Elohim Kafraim, Bechim Menashe, Berech Adonai V'yishmerecha, Yer Adonai Panav Elecha V'yiduneka, Yisad Adonai Panav Elecha V'ysemlecha Shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May God lift the face toward you and grant you peace. All right, we now rise for the Aleinu, page 57. Aleinu l'shabeach la'ja'on ha'kol, la'teit gedula le'otzer b'reishit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'ratzon, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, ve'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'nachnu kolim, v'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei amlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, she'hu notei shamayim ve'yosef haaretz, Moshe v'karo v'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinat tuzo, v'gofei miromim, hu Eloheinu eino, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakatu b'torato, v'data ayom v'hashivota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, v'shamayim mima'al, Haaretz mitachat eino. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, v'ne'emar v'chaya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz, v'yom hahu, Yeh Adonai Echad, Ushemo Echad. We may be seated as we lovingly recall the memory of our departed relatives and friends whose yortzites we observe during the coming week, thinking especially tonight of Louis Aldeff, Aaron Ehrenbart, Minnie Danaski, John A. Berman, Aaron Gittimer, Shirley Herodes, Morris Cantor, Philip Kaufman, Lena Clore, Brianna Leitner, Clara Leon, George Lindenbaum, Zelda Lutz, Gerald Milner, Miriam Nash, Peter Ottinger, Anna Pulse, Louis Rosenberg, Benjamin Rosenstein, Morris Rothblatt, Shelley Rotman, Sam Rubin, Thomas Saunders, Burnett Schwartz, Sheila Rose Seal, Giselle Spiegel, Arthur Sussman, Joseph Thierman, Francine Weil, Morris Weiner, Doreen Wolf. Two people passed away who were not even in the Shiva yet. They're going to be buried this week, Monday and Tuesday. On Monday, Frances Block, the mother of Susan Block, lived to be 98. Simi Baum, the mother of Amy Tesler, 92 years old, and escaped as a child from Poland just before the Holocaust began. And Aviva Schottland, the daughter of Marvin and Sandy Schottland, sister of Daniel Schottland, who died at 39 years old. Just a sudden brain bleed, leaving behind a 12-week-old baby and fiance. They were not married because they put off the wedding in order to celebrate post-COVID. And, a wonderful woman, talented artist. Spent a lot of time here in Temple with Abraham as the aunt of the three Schottland kids. I know her mostly as their lap, right? And she's just a loving human being, too short of a life, and a great tragedy. We mourn with them. We mourn with all of you who are here to observe the yortzites. We ask all of you who wish to join me in the Mourner's Kaddish. It's on page 61. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shnei rava. V'yomad yivrach yerutei v'yomlich malchutei v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'yidechol beit Yisrael v'galav uzman karim v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach me'olam v'lo me'ol maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha barichu La'elam in kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Yamiran V'Alma V'Imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chaim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Imrama V'Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Zikranam V'Bracha. I'm doing elbows because I'm shaking so many hands in a row. So may the memory be a blessing to you all. All right, some announcements. Tomorrow's services are at 9:30. It's a lot to look forward to. There are 4 or 5 8th graders leading services tomorrow, including Maya Engel, Solomon Riegelhab, Sarah Orr, I think, Sophia and Zachary Sparks. They're all going to help me lead. There's Hallel tomorrow because it's Rosh Chodesh, 2 Torahs, and the sermon is My Summer Vacation, Part 20. 20th summer here, right? So you'll learn about my musical and religious experience in Nashville, Tennessee last weekend. And there may be Avett Brothers songs involved, yes. Yeah, it's quite possible. Next weekend I'll be gone. I'll be on the East Coast visiting my son Micah, Karen's family, some other places as well. And we will have lots of people helping to lead the services. If you wish to go to Torah study this Wednesday, please email me because we're possibly going to do it live at a cafe again. So email me if you want to go. Wednesday at 9. There's no adult Hebrew level 2 for the next couple of weeks. Well, I think that's kind of about it for now. Did I miss? Oh my goodness, yes, the most important thing. Thank you. I'm supposed to do this at the beginning of the service. I'm doing it now. This is a drawing. Those who made a donation for pizza to our schools, not one of you, but 2 of you will get high holiday parking spaces. And the winner is Harriet Bloom, my mom. I'm kidding. Okay, no, she's not in the. She made a beautiful donation, but nepotism she's not actually in here. Okay. All right. Here we go. Dennis and Susan Gilday. Dennis and Susan Gilday. Okay. Here comes number 2. All right, here it is. Randy and Jan Kessler. All right, so the Kesslers and the Gildays. For the others, I'm sorry. Maybe next year. You'll still get a delicious pizza, and you still will have helped our schools. Kesslers and Gildays, everybody. What's that? Oh, must be present to win, yeah. Nah. I should have said that, would have gotten great attendance. All right, anyway, so I missed July 4th weekend here, and this music stand happens to say Hamilton on it, so even though I don't do it that well, it's so fun. We're going to do the Adon Olam to Hamilton. It is on page 269. Oh, say shalom v'ramahu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru ve'imeru amen. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir yitzir nivra v'eit nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yiyeh v'tifara Adon Olam asher malach da 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 da. Da 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 והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו, that was terrible, להמשילו להכבירה, בלי ראשית בלי תכלית, לא העוז והמשרה, הוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי ועת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. דום עולם אשר מעלה בטרם כל יציר יציר נברא ויית נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא בידו אף כי רוחי בעת אישן ויעירה ואם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא אילה ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Everybody! Ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.